Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Ask Anything presented by Motion Consulting. I'm your host, Angel Leon, Motion's Director of Personnel. We're glad you're with us for this episode of Ask Anything, and with us today is a special guest who's going to be talking with us about coaching and mentoring. What is coaching? What is mentoring? What are the differences between the two? All that and much more with our guest, Amy Snow. Amy is a former Division I soccer player and lifelong participant in sports. Amy loves what being an athlete has done for her in every aspect of her life. In fact, she believes it actually helped prepare her for her life. While she imagined the transition from her sport would be hard, she didn't know how hard until she got there. That is why she is also passionate about helping college and professional athletes move from their sport to their new career, helping them to create a game plan, challenging them to push themselves in new ways, and ultimately getting them to their goals faster than they could on their own is incredibly rewarding and energizing for Amy. Amy graduated from Cornell University with a bachelor's in statistics and biometry and a master's of arts in teaching. She captained the varsity soccer squad her junior and senior years, was named Ivy League Rookie of the Year her freshman year, and earned multiple All-Ivy honors and athletic academic All-American status during her tenure there. She was also inducted into the New York State Girls Soccer Hall of Fame in 2018. This sounds like a great career, Amy.
I've suppressed at least 3 dangs. I will not suppress a 4th one. If it happens, getting a dang.
And with that, we'd like to welcome our guest, Amy Snow. Hey, Amy, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Angel.
Oh, it's great to have you with us. We've sort of talked about coaching and mentoring in the past in our Ask Anything podcast, but never with somebody that actually goes above and beyond what a mentor and coach is. I have to say that I've seen Amy's work firsthand recently, and it's been tremendous to see the change, the development in individuals that she's worked with over the past 6-7 months, and I've been very impressed. So, Amy, it's great to have you again with us, and I want to start, as we often do here at Ask Anything, with the very basics. So, what can you tell us in your own words? What is coaching?
It's a great question because, coaching, especially, someone as an athlete, a lot of times people think coaching is like, someone who's an expert in their field and who wants to, tells you how to get better and to, improve. And while that's coaching in the athletic sense, coaching in the professional coaching world is a bit different. Coaching in the capacity that I'm doing it's about your present and where you are presently, and then where you are headed in your future. And so the goal is to help you gain clarity in your vision, to help eliminate obstacles to your success. It helps to accelerate your own personal growth, as well as help you to achieve goals, achievements, so that you can live your best possible life, both professionally and personally. So it's a field that I absolutely am passionate about, because especially when it comes to leaders, we say that, when a leader gets better, everybody wins. And to be able to help a leader and to get better is, it's a real thrill to be a part of that journey with them.
I think that's an excellent way to put it. When you help a leader get better, everybody involved really experiences something different. And you used the sports analogy at the beginning, how it's coaching, right? People think that coaching is sports related. That's the first thing that comes to mind to most people when they hear the term coaching. But that is so not true. And obviously your work with individuals who are looking to better themselves, their soft skills, and sometimes their leadership skills, it's very impactful, not just to them, but to those around them.
Absolutely. In fact, it's actually one of a recent client, his wife was talking to me just last week, and she's like, I've seen changes in him at home. And that's what's great about coaching. It's not siloed to one area of your life. It really, and none of our life isn't typically siloed anyway. When whatever we're experiencing at work affects us at home and vice versa. And our growth, in both areas affects every area of our life as well. Yeah, it's a great process. A lot of times people just don't, they don't know what they don't know. If they've never experienced coaching, it's kind of hard to really know if they want it or need it. But once they get a chance to experience it, even for a short period of time, it really is transformational. And and can really, change a trajectory potentially. So it's an exciting profession to be a part of, because you get to be a part of someone's life and their journey. And that's a real privilege to be allowed to do that.
Yeah, and just as important as coaching, there is also mentoring. Now,
Right.
a lot of people associate the two, they put them together, of course, and this is what we're here to talk about. So what can you
Yeah.
tell us about mentoring and what it really is?
Yeah, and that's something I'm passionate about as well. I've mentored a lot of young women, and I've also been mentored, and I am being mentored as, currently. But mentoring is different than coaching in that a lot of times it's geared toward a very specific path of development. A mentor shares, their experiences, their knowledge, their wisdom as to how they got where they are, the goal, whether it's a goal achieved or how they overcame a challenge. And the premise oftentimes is that it might serve you to do the same. So I kind of like, I don't know, a visual for me that's helped is that it's like someone is walking, has walked down a path ahead of us. And then you're on that same path. They've kind of turned around and they're coming back, and you're like, okay, how did you get to where you got?
Right.
And can you help me get there? And there's a sense of counsel, of giving advice, actions to take, which is, again, that's very different than coaching. And I know that's, as we compare the two, or what are the differences between the two? That's one difference for sure, is that they're offering their counsel, their advice, their actions, and encouraging you to take action yourself. Where coaching is, we're not telling you what to do. And I can get into that later, but mentoring is a key aspect of life. And you don't have one mentor for everything in your life, right? I think you seek out mentors in different aspects that can help you get to where you want to go, who've gone before you, who are better than you, and who've just been doing it longer, that can give you, and the important thing with mentoring is finding someone who does it well, right? Just because they've been doing it doesn't necessarily mean it's someone that you want to be mentored by.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but that brings up a really, a really interesting idea that I was having as you were speaking, because we can be mentored from a very young age, from at home. I mean, you can look at maybe your brother and sister as a mentor, but I think that goes to what you were going with is that not necessarily your brother and sister might be the best mentors in the world.
Right. Especially early on. Very true. Very true. I think I have sought out mentors in my whole life, in different, I've been different seasons, and it really is. It's like, I want that person I've been observing. And, honestly, there have been some mentors that I didn't know them personally, but we were ran in some of the same circles, and I just observed them for a while. And I was like really impressed by who they were, the person they were, and how they walked and they lived their life, walked their journey. And I sought them out, and asked, that's the thing, you can ask and they can say no, but if you never ask, the answer is always no. So I've been very fortunate to have a lot of different mentors. And, like they talk about, sometimes it's for, a reason, a season, or long term, because I've had some mentors that have been very short term, a few months, some that have been a few years. It depends.
You can have mentors that are unofficial mentors, people that you
Absolutely.
look up to, that you may have a relationship with, but not necessarily a mentoring relationship, an official mentoring relationship.
Right. Absolutely.
Because you view, maybe you'd like to follow the path that they've been on, you'd like to follow their steps and the things that they've learned and how they've developed professionally. So you don't necessarily have to have that official relationship, but we're going to sit down weekly or every other week to talk about your experiences. Because I always view mentors as sort of what you were saying earlier, sort of like a storyteller. I'm there to listen to the story, to present my issues or the things I have questions on, and then learn from how they walk that path before me.
Absolutely. And, and you can be mentored by people that you never meet. I mean, you think about all the different books, podcasts, there's so many resources available to us today that we can be mentored by people that we never meet, and which is the case. I mean, I have a bookshelf full of mentors, and I have the privilege, as a Maxwell leadership coach, to be mentored by John Maxwell, and I've been mentored through his books and through being a part of his team. We have, more access to John than than a lot of people, as one of his coaches. And that's a privilege, when you find people again that you share their values, but yet we think different thoughts. That's why I was like, get around people who share your values and think different thoughts that can challenge you and cause you to raise your level. Mentorship is, I have a young woman who I mentored on a more consistent basis early on, probably about once a month, once every couple months. And her season in life has changed as she's become a mom, and her availability isn't as much at this point, and that's okay. And she'll just reach out from time to time and say, hey, can we meet, go for a walk? And I love that because it's really an ongoing connection and mentorship. And it's a privilege and joy to get to do that for people. And the thing is, it's not just a one-way street either, because even though I've walked for, longer and further in some areas of life, she has encouraged and challenged me in ways that has made me better too. So it's, I think coming in as a mentor doesn't mean you have to have all the answers. I think it's really one of the things I've had to come to and learn is that letting the people that I mentor in on my journey, the ups, the downs, the failures, the mess ups, all of that, and how I walk through that. How am I processing that? How am I choosing to move forward in that process, as difficult or as challenging as it may be? Because that's giving them a behind the curtain view is I think a key part of the learning for them and for me. So that's been that vulnerability piece. Granted, there's vulnerability. You have, depending on the relationship, there's levels of vulnerability there. But I think that's key for any leader, is being willing to let them in. And we have to go first. That whole leaders go first in that regard. So we want people to be vulnerable with us. We need to be a safe place. And so I think that's a key part of mentoring.
Yeah, and you mentioned vulnerability, and I mean, it's part of your journey either way. So you have to get to it at a certain point during that mentoring relationship and get it in, because it's part of what made you who you are today.
Right. And, I say this, all the time in the coaching I do and the leadership development and training, we have to be honest with where we're at, because if we're not, then we can't really grow effectively, because we're not being honest with ourselves. I think that's that's a humility aspect of it as well. That part of that vulnerability is just like, hey, this is where I'm at. And then, and only then, can we create a plan of action that is accurate to where you are in life, to be able to get to the next, that next place, that next level. Yeah. And, that takes time. For some, it takes maturity and also a safety, because I realize too, depending on the environment they've been exposed to in their growing up years or whatever work environment, it may not have been as safe a place. That's a key aspect as well, as creating trust and safety for that to be able to take place. And that's true in coaching as well, that they know that they are in a safe place. I like to say that, I guess, going back to the coaching piece, it's the safest place to feel uncomfortable, because you are being challenged to step out of your comfort zone and be stretched in ways maybe you've never been stretched before, but that's where growth happens. And it's a safe place to do so, right? Because failure is part of the success journey, the success cycle. They go hand in hand, and it's a safe place to do that.
So let's talk a little bit about those differences between coaching and mentoring. You started mentioning a couple earlier,
Right.
but what can you tell us about those differences?
Mentoring is this place of like, tell me how you got there. What would you recommend? What counsel can you give me to get where, because I want to get where you are. Now, granted, it may not be the exact same place, but that direction and that position or that role or whatever it may be. How do you get there? Or how do I become better at this, I don't know, part of my life, whether it's, again, professional or personal. And that mentor if they're coming alongside you, they're offering counsel, they're offering their journey to you and the things that they did. And then asking, okay, what, here are some actions I recommend you take in order to get there. And then come back to me when you've done those. And then we'll continue with the next level or the next step or next phases. Coaching is very different, because coaching is all really about listening and asking good questions. I, as a coach, am drawing out of you what is already within you. Again, it's giving that space for you to think deeper into those questions into your life than you ever have before, versus just telling you what to do. Because how often do we follow through on the things that we're told to do versus the things that come from within us and say, okay, how do you want to move forward? And that you're coming up with that action plan. And that's the piece where, as a coach, and I'm not saying a mentor wouldn't do this, but really, my responsibility as a coach is to help, again, you get from where you are to where you want to be. So there's an accountability there. And there's, again, an asking of questions. There's mostly listening, reflecting back to you what I'm hearing. I only offer suggestions down the line if I feel if it could be helpful. It's not the first thing out of my mouth. I'm really, again, wanting to draw out of you what's already within you, which raises your awareness to get to that desired result, and then getting you to think differently. It's interesting. One of my coaching mentors, he said this once. He said, 1% think, 2% think they think, and the rest would rather die than think. So so people to have people be thinking into their life is not as common as you would think. And giving people space to actually think, giving them that silence to process and to ponder. What other scenario, in this capacity, when it comes to your success, do you have someone focused on you and you alone and helping you, again, to get from where you are to where you want to be? It's like, you can go to a gym to get healthy, to get fit, but you're going to get healthy and fit much quicker if you hire a trainer who is zeroed in on what your goals are, what it is that you want to do. I think, as a coach, yeah, I'm zeroed in on what you say that you're desiring, what you say you want, where you want to go, who you want to become, what you want to do. But the client is the one who is establishing the agenda. And then between us, we have a designed alliance, we like to call it, in helping you get there. I'm not perfect at it. There's times I'm like, oh,
it's right there.
It's right there. I can see it. But see, this is the thing. That's right. That's from my vision, where I can see them going. And it's like, but that may not be their path. Right. And that may not be the thing that they want to do or how they need to go about it.
And I understand that perfectly because my background is in psychology. And so when I was going to school and I realized that I was going for clinical psychology, and I realized that, I don't really want to do this because I don't want to take on all this burden.
Sure.
Now, please don't judge, but until you've been in that seat, you don't really know what it's like to be listening to somebody's problems day in and day out all the time. So it's similar in that regard, because there were points during my practicum where I would see it, but like you mentioned, you don't want to overstep and basically give them all this in a platter without them realizing that, wait a second, this is
exactly.
And so your role as a coach is very similar in that you're trying to get them from where you guys are starting as coach and individual to, okay, this is our path, but I can't just handhold you all the way and basically give you all the answers. You have to realize it for yourself along the way, how you can get from point A to point Z.
Right. Because my answer may not be, again, what their answer is. Right. Because my experiences, my perspective, all that is very different, and short circuits their journey. And it's not coaching when you're basically saying, "Oh, well, I can see this clearly. This is what you need to do." Da 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 da. Now, granted, there's a place for that, but that's not what coaching is. So it's just understanding there are different professions, different things, depending on what it is you need and what it is you want.
And you have to give people the space to grow.
Absolutely.
Because if they don't, and this is going to sound terrible, if they don't water themselves and get that, like you were saying, that 1% trying to think and just get out of that little circle, rectangle, whatever you want to call it, then they're not going to be able to figure it out by themselves. And so you're there to kind of guide them through the process. But if they can't get from that one step to the next, that's where you start adding some tidbits and maybe throwing a little bit of crumbs along the way so that they can just start moving along.
Absolutely. Because there are resources I have, tools like in my toolkit that if I feel can be helpful in their journey and in their process, I absolutely include those along the way. And it's real, like I said, it's very life-giving to see those light bulbs go off for them and to see them understand, oh, this has been creating an obstacle for me, not only here, but in other areas of my life. And for them to come to an awareness, because again, awareness is key for anybody, but then it's like, what do you do with that awareness? And that's where you're, as a coach, when I say kind of holding their feet to the fire, and it's not in a sense that I'm in their face. Obviously each person needs something different, is how they want to be held accountable is going to be different. But if they don't follow through on something, there's no shame involved, because that's counterproductive. Shaming just causes them to continue in that spiral. It's this curiosity. As a coach, curiosity is such a key aspect of being a coach. And, what prevented you from following through, and what you said you wanted? Let's go there. Because until they're made aware of that, right? Until that awareness in themselves comes to the surface, it'll continue to dog them. And this is, again, part of the process of coaching, is helping them to come to a deeper awareness in those places where they're wanting to see movement and success. And that's the power of giving people space and time, especially in our culture today, when we are just bombarded from every side, every angle. This phone, right? Our phones are wonderful devices, but boy, we just don't have, I don't know if you've heard of the term white space, but that kind of margin, that place to just have time to think. So sometimes people just need that time to just have the space to be asked those questions, and then space just to think into them, and having someone outside of their circle, outside of just who's objective, to be able to hear. Because one of the things as a coach too that I'm constantly listening for is their language, their words that they're using, because that can convey sometimes a deeper belief that they don't even realize that they're believing. Again, when you have someone who's zeroed in like that for you, it can just bring a new level of awareness to bear that can help them grow in any aspect that they're wanting to grow in.
So speaking of that awareness level,
Mm-hmm.
how can someone know that they need to be coached or mentored?
Yeah, it's a great question, because honestly, there's a lot of people that need coaching that aren't aware. And no, I say that, I mean, as a coach, I need coaching. I mean, if I could coach myself, how great would that be? And to a degree I can, but I need a coach. And I know that because, see, the thing is, when it comes to our own stuff, I think, we judge others by that tend to be black and white, whether it's right or wrong. We judge ourselves by our intentions. So we can tend to let ourselves off the hook. So I know I need a coach, because it's very easy, because it's not affecting anybody else. So I'm just going to continue on in the same path I'm on. And So anyway, so when it comes to mentoring, how do you know you need a mentor? I think, I'm thinking about it from my own perspective, because I have both in my life. I've done both and I'm doing both. I think when you're in a new role, in a new season, a desire to just be in a new place in life, I think when you realize, this is new for me. I'm in a new role here, and I just need some sound advice, sound counsel. How did they do this? Like for me, like I said, I just got married last September, and my life and my profession, I mean, I love people, but being married and now being in a blended family, it's like I need just some help from people around me who have gone before me, who've lived. Like actually my mentor in my life right now, I asked her to be a mentor in my spiritual journey. She's been married for over 20 years and she's in a blended family. So I'm getting some counsel and advice from her on how to love and serve my husband better. How do I do this step parent thing well? We have adult kids, so he has 3 boys. And so it's like, how do I best? So anyway, so being able to be like, this is a new role for me, a new place in life that I'm loving, but I also know I could use some help, in that. So I think that's one way to know that you need a mentor, is just, again, someone who you admire and respect, and know that you could be doing better if you had some people who have gone before you. And even in like a professional world, it's like, this is a new role. Who are you replacing, or who are the people around you that can maybe speak into that to say, hey, how can I be more successful in this place? Can you just walk alongside me for a time while I'm getting my feet under me? For coaching, I think it's a place where when I think about it, it's like, do you feel stuck, or have you reached a plateau? Do you want to get to the next level, but you feel like, I just need to get out of this box I'm in. I need to be thinking differently about this, or thinking into my life differently. Like I was saying earlier, just having someone who has more of an objective perspective, who can ask me some deeper questions and get me to be thinking differently about my role, or how do I get to that next place? And I think too, it's like when you're ready to say, I'm ready to invest in myself with my time, my resources, and I want to take the time and effort to get there. I guess when you're just kind of maybe tired of the place where you are, and you're not, because the thing is, what got you from point A to point B is not going to get you from point B to point C, and so on and so forth. You have to continue to grow. You have to continue to invest in yourself, because otherwise you're just going to put a ceiling on your growth. And honestly, too, as a leader, like I talked to this with leaders, we have to stay ahead of our people, because we want to be the shoulders that they stand on versus the ceiling over their head.
Right.
And if I'm not growing, then I'm putting a cap on my people. Because there's a concept, actually in John Maxwell's book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. It's called the law of the lid. If you as a leader consider yourself to be a 6, let's say, your people will never rise above a 5. If you're a 5, your people won't rise above a 4. But the beautiful thing about it is that you can raise your lid. So as a leader, as you continue to raise your lid, as your leader goes, so you go your people, right? Your people can grow. And, we're not going to be attracting people who are better leaders than we are. We're
Right.
going to be attracting people that are at our level or lower. So we need to be continuing to grow and develop, because we can't take people where we've never been, and we can't give what we don't have. So that's why we need to be continuing to invest in ourselves as a leader when it comes to not only our skills, but our leadership. And sometimes we just need someone, having a personal coach, to help us get there, and maybe help, because, we don't, like I said, we don't know what we don't know. And sometimes having those leaders and having a coach really invest in us to be able to take us there can be all the difference in the world.
So to wrap this up, you mentioned some of this already, but
Mhm.
what are the biggest benefits to somebody who's being coached and or mentored?
I think from a mentoring standpoint, knowing you have somebody in your corner, and which is true for coaching as well,
Right.
but knowing you have someone in your corner to come alongside you, who's going to be there cheering you on, who is helping to be a guide, which I think is huge. And yeah, because I think it also gives you a path, some tracks to run on when it comes to the journey you're on. And that when I say following after, again, not in their direct footsteps, but they're giving you, like, they're kind of lighting a path for you. And it's huge to know that you have someone, like when I think about my mentor, the mentors I've had, and my current mentor right now, it brings me a lot of joy, because I know I can go to her at any point, and she is for me and is willing to do whatever it takes to help me. From coaching, there are so many benefits. Again, having someone in your corner, someone who's completely focused on your success, who cheers you on, but also like kicks you in the pants when you need it, which is good. Again, someone who's for you. I think someone who helps pull out of you what's within you, so that it doesn't remain buried,
Right.
but that helps bring greater and greater awareness to your life, what it is that you want, where it is you want to go, who is it that you want to become, and then helping you get there and holding your feet to the fire to do so, and not letting you settle. I think also challenging your wrong thinking or your limited thinking, and getting you out of that box to help you think into your life in a way that you never have before, and thinking greater. And I think it can up-level your experience in life and your success in life. Again, however you define success, because I think that's another aspect of being able to pull that out of you. What is success for you? Because the definition is going to be very different for you than for you, Angel, or you, Brian. How do you define success? Let's help you get there. I think it helps, again, discover or uncover what your vision is for your life. I think kind of how I just defined coaching at the beginning, again, it helps eliminate obstacles to your success. It helps increase your growth and accomplish goals in areas of your life, whether it's relationships, career, finances, spiritual, you name it. Any aspect of your life can be brought to a coach and be taken to the next level, depending on what it is that you want. So I think, coaching helps empower you to live your best possible life, like I said, personally or professionally. And I can speak to it from a person who's been coached and is being coached, as well as the experiences I've gotten and the privilege of coaching a lot of people in their journey. And there's nothing greater than seeing, again, those light bulbs and seeing them have greater success in the ways that they're wanting to. So there's so many benefits to you as you get coached to get where you want to go. So it's a privilege.
Really quickly before we go, I think you mentioned something that I think it's really undervalued in many aspects, and that is accountability, specifically when you talk about coaching, because it does bring that sense of accountability that a lot of people, unfortunately, in their professional lives maybe don't have, because they just don't have anybody, like you mentioned, to hold their feet to the fire and basically say, okay, you messed up here. What did you learn? How can we, moving forward, actually make this a little bit better? So I think that was something that I took away from your answer here that I really appreciate, because I am a huge believer in accountability in all aspects of life. It is undervalued, I think, or it has been undervalued for the last few years in our professional settings.
We're talking earlier about awareness.
Mhm.
And awareness is like, well, that's step one. All right, now I'm aware. If that's all you are, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
There has to be action after it.
Yeah.
And accountability. Awareness is, okay, now I know. Then it follows, okay, now that you know, what are you going to do? And if the answer is nothing, you might as well not even be aware to begin with.
Right. Absolutely. I bring this example. It's like, if you get plopped in the middle of a city somewhere and they say, okay, get to New York City. It's like, well, where am I? Right? Because we need to know where we are. Now, granted, you could say, okay, we've been plopped in Minneapolis. Okay, now I can make a plan. But see, I could be aware that I'm in Minneapolis, but then, like you said, if I don't make a plan on how to get to New York, then I'm just going to be sitting in cold Minnesota for.
It looks like New York City, but it's
right, exactly. So
more snow, less anger.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I think awareness is huge, because, again, with my leaders, I always talk about, it's like, if we're not aware, then we can't grow. But because I think this is what happened. This has happened to me as a young leader, is it was pride, right? And if something was brought to my attention that I was doing wrong or that I needed growth in, I would be embarrassed or whatever. And now, as I've continued to grow and develop myself, not that it's not hard at times to hear, but I'm grateful for it, because then I can become better, not just for me, but for the people in my life, and that I'm leading and that I show up for on a day-to-day basis. And on the accountability piece, on how I just want to bring that, because there's a piece of, okay, you messed up here. Okay, failure is part of success here. What did you learn? Because I talk about the success cycle. It's you try, you fail, you learn, you improve, you re-enter, or I like to say you get back in the game. And then, right, it's that cycle. It's over and over and over again. And where it's failure is when they stop at failure. Because if you don't learn from it, the game over. But if you learn, another important piece is, how do you improve and then get back in the game? But then the other aspect too, this is another piece with leaders that I want to encourage over and over and over again, is this piece of celebrating the wins. Because we can so often focus in on what's not being done right and what needs to be done, versus celebrating the wins along the way. Because that's, when I start my coaching sessions, it's like, okay, first thing we do is, how did you do on things you said you wanted to do? We celebrate the things that they did, and okay, but what prevented you from not doing the things you said you wanted to? Okay, what do you need to tweak? Right. So there's the celebration piece too, as well as, okay, what can we learn from maybe not following through on what you did? Because that accountability piece isn't just from a negative standpoint. This is, hey, because I know for some, if I know I'm gonna have to report in that's enough encouragement for me to do what I said I'd do. And I know there's plenty of people like that, but again, it's all toward wanting to help people be successful. Because when we win, think about how that just spurs us on to keep doing more.
Mhm. Yep. And I liken that to what you just mentioned about that circle, because if you fail and you flatline and you
Mhm.
stay the same course, then there's no new knowledge, there's no new learning that occurs. You're not putting into practice the things that you know went wrong, so you need to change that approach to something
Right.
new. But how do you get to that something new without actually sitting down, in this case with
Right.
the coach, talking about it and figuring out where it went wrong and how you can tweak your approach to then just move forward along the circle. So
Yes, this statement, experience is our greatest teacher, is not accurate. It's evaluated experience.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like you said, taking time to reflect what happened, what went wrong. Okay, what can I do better? All right. And so absolutely.
And then
So
how
it's-
will you know, if circumstances change, that
Right.
can affect your outcome? When you were talking earlier about raising your lid,
mhm,
and I don't
Mhm.
know if this is where that phrase raising your lid comes from, but like it's training fleas. Like you put them in a jar, you put the lid on, the fleas will learn that they can only jump so high,
Hmm,
so that if you take the lid off at some point, they'll never get out of the jar because they've learned they can't jump any higher than where that lid is.
mhm.
interesting.
So
Yeah.
it's without somebody saying like, hey man, the lid's gone,
Right.
you can adjust your approach and get.
Absolutely. Well, absolutely. And I think there's another law, the law of the picture. People do what people see. They see their leader growing and, hey, owning the stuff that they mess up in. But hey, this is areas where I'm growing, or I'm getting people around me to fill that gap. Let me tell you, that's the stuff that needs to trickle down, because if they don't see their leader doing it, right, what's going to cause them to?
Right.
So that's absolutely that, as they see, and then they're offering opportunities to their people. Hey, how is it that you're wanting to grow? How is it that you're wanting to develop? Where is it that you're wanting to go? And I want to help you get there. And that's huge. Because for anything, if you want to grow an organization, you have to grow your people. But if you're not doing it as a leader, then really what's the motivation? So yeah. Hey dude, the lid's gone. Let's
It's
blow the
gone.
lid
It's
off this
gone.
place. Absolutely. And that's what an environment to live and work in, when that's, the sky's the limit, literally. And because that's huge.
And with that, we'd like to thank Amy for joining us today here on Asking Anything. Amy, it's been a great conversation. Thank you very much for joining us again.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening in to this week's edition of Ask Anything presented by Moser Consulting. We hope you enjoyed listening to Amy Snow talk to us about coaching and mentoring. Join us next time when we continue to dive deeper with our resident experts and what they're currently working on. Remember to send us your ideas or topics via our social media feeds. In the meantime, please remember to give us a rating and subscribe to our feed wherever you get your podcasts. Until then, the lid is off. So long, everybody.